Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening for our Colorado Springs Prenda info session tonight. We're grateful that you took some time to be here with us and hope we can get you some valuable information and answer any questions that you have. My name is Tate, and I will be watching the comments and feeding the questions here to our other members. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and we will answer them for you. We're joined tonight by two of my coworkers, Shauna and Rochelle, and they will be helping go over the details and giving their experiences with Prenda. And I will turn it over to Rochelle now.
Hi, excited to be here in Colorado Springs. I'm actually in Arizona, but if we weren't in a COVID world, I would be in Colorado Springs talking to you because it's way more fun to talk about Prenda in person and be face to face, but this is the best we can get. So just pretend like you're sitting here and I'm telling you all about it, and Shauna and Tate will help us. And when I first heard about Prenda, which was at the end of 2018, and Prenda was really, really new, there were 3 classes in Arizona in my town. I was just really just blown away, like instantly blown away. I visited those 3 classes and went to Kelly Smith, the founder, and said, I have to work for you. Like, I have to be part of this. And so almost 2 years later, I'm a very avid storyteller. I love to tell the story of Prenda and what Prenda is and does for kids and why we're doing what we're doing. And just excited to share that here. So, and then Shauna, I want to introduce her really fast. We'll bring her in a little bit. She is a micro school guide in her 2nd year, and a mom of Prenda students. I have a 6th grader and 8th grader that are in Prenda, and just really excited that she's with us too. So we're gonna have her kind of pop in a little bit later and talk about what being a guide is like. Okay, so Tate, let's go ahead and just start telling the story, and I will try to stay out of the weeds as much as possible, and we can kind of have a little bit of fun tonight. Okay, so back in 2013, Kelly Smith, that's who I was talking about, who's our founder, moved home to his hometown of Mesa, Arizona, and his oldest son was 8, and he wanted to teach his son how to code. So he went to and as he, he's like, if I'm going to teach him how to code, I should teach other kids how to code. And so he went to the public library, which isn't like, as I think about that, that's not sort of the typical response, but that's kind of how Kelly is, just incredibly generous human being. I describe him as one of the most intelligent people I've met with the least amount of ego, which is a really great thing in a boss. So the guy that started Prenda is just a really, really great guy. And so he went to the public library and said, can I offer a free coding class to kids in the neighborhood? And they're like, yeah, sure. So they put flyers around the neighborhood, on the telephone poles, come learn how to make a video game. And Mondays from 3:30 to 5 for the next 5 years, kids were coming into Code Club, and they would come, and then the next week they'd bring their friends, and it was a very robust and flourishing program through that whole time. Some interesting things that he learned. One was when he prepared at the very beginning, the first couple meetings, he prepared lessons to share on the whiteboard. And when he started talking from the whiteboard, he realized that kids just kind of glaze over, especially after school has been going on all day. And so, so we decided to figure out different ways to deliver the information. Another thing that was really interesting for him in that time was the 5th grader that walked in who hates school and hates math and is trying to build a video game and wants to find the right trajectory for his rocket. So he's Googling trigonometric functions. That's not a normal 5th grade activity. So there was this idea of when he saw things like that, he was like, what if all of school could be like this? But it was just sort of the seed of a thought back in 2013. And the other thing that he realized, so once this code club in downtown Mesa did really well, other libraries were like, hey, we want to have code clubs too. And so he helped them, he created a system to be able to set those up. And in almost all those places, he found somebody that knew how to code to run these code clubs. And then in this one library in East Mesa, he could not find somebody who knew how to code to run it. And there were 2 librarians that were just really excited about having it, but had no idea anything about computer programming. And so he gave them this here's what you do. And their club ended up really flourishing. And it was pretty counterintuitive as he thought through that this club that had the adults didn't know how to do what they were doing, and these that the adult did know how to do what they were doing, like didn't do as well. And the conclusion he came to is that when the adult in the room doesn't have all the answers, kids are really empowered to figure things out for themselves. It's interesting because I was working for Prenda for a while when I came to this realization that I had been the Lego robotics coach for my kids' school for 4 years. And after 4 years ultimately a really great team that went to state, won an award in state, I have no idea how to program robots. And very intentionally decided not to learn how to program robots. And I had been working at Prenda, sort of telling Prenda's story for a really long time before I was like, oh, that's right. It's the same idea of just not needing to be the expert. Like in my robotics team to be the expert, it took the opportunity to be the expert away from the kids. And Kelly found that same thing in Code Club. So fast forward to 2017, Kelly took that seedling of maybe what if all of school could be like this, turned that idea into something, and then January of 18 opened a micro school in his house with one of his kids and 6 of his friends' kids, who they pulled their kids out of school. He pulled his kid out of school. And for a semester, these 7 middle schoolers and Kelly like tested Prenda out as a like, could this work? And it was beautiful. Definitely messy, definitely not perfect, definitely making it up as he went. But it was just really powerful experience. And when he saw that, he's like, this is it. And so then the next year added in 2 more. That's about the time that I found out about it into that second semester, toward the end of that second semester. And like I said, my response as I heard about this, I was a high school math teacher and I was a homeschool kid back in the early 80s when nobody had heard of it. And I've taught in charters, I've taught in private settings. My kids have been in public, private, and charters. So my kids had most recently been in a Montessori. So I had this really like broad view of education, where like my husband had gone to the public school everywhere he'd lived. Like he had a very narrow, which is typical and normal and definitely nothing wrong with that. I just had seen that there were other options. And so when I saw this, I was like, this is it. This answers a lot of the issues I had as a parent and an educator. So as the slide says, the things that we came to were learning is a choice, teaching is impossible. This is not to be insulting to teachers. This is actually just to make the point that you can't make a kid learn. You can't make anybody learn. You can give them, they can do all sorts of activities, behaviors that we equate with learning, like memorizing and regurgitating, but to actually take it into themselves and make it part of their DNA, which is what learning is in my mind, it has to be a choice. They have to choose to do that. So our mission statement is 2 words. It's empower learners. We're going to define these. So a learner is somebody who is obsessed with gaining new knowledge, developing new skills, and mastering new things. And if you have had a kid get really obsessed about something and learn everything about it, think about my nephew when he was really little and knew the name, even he could barely talk and he knew the name of every Thomas the Tank Engine train car. And there was just this drive for him to learn more and more and more about that. We always, whenever we talk about Tate's 5-year-old son, that is the same way about dinosaurs, super obsessed about dinosaurs. So if you can align what a kid or a child or student, whatever learner is obsessed with what they need to know, quote unquote, need to know, there's a lot of power in that. So, and then to empower is to help someone find power, the ability to do anything and become anything. And as I've done, this is our, I think 9th webinar in 2 weeks, Tate, something like that. As we've been doing these, I look at this definition and it has become really clear to me each time we do this, more clear every time I say it, that it is really awesome when we tell kids that they can do anything and become anything. It is a whole different situation when they tell themselves, when they can tell themselves, I can do anything or become anything. then you're at a whole different level of what they're going to be able to accomplish in the world. So that's sort of like a really rough overview of what Prenda is. Are we talking about models, 2 versions of the model right now? So let's talk a little bit about, if you are on this webinar, you're likely in the Colorado Springs area or surrounding. And I want to talk about the 2 options we have in Colorado. You are fortunate enough to live in a place where we have found a partner. It's Mountain Song. It's a Waldorf school in Colorado Springs, a charter school that we've partnered with to bring Prenda micro schools to Colorado Springs. And so a micro school in Prenda's world is defined as a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 10 kids, a caring adult who leads them through we call it a guide. We call our teachers guides. I had somebody reminded me of this yesterday. There's the old, I don't even know if that's a saying, but the sage on the stage or the guide on the side. Like, definitely looking for the guide on the side in our classrooms, not the sage on the stage. So it has all the counties that we're serving with this opportunity. And then if being in a micro school doesn't work for whatever reason, because you can't guide it or you would rather just homeschool your kids, we have Prenda Family also as a tuition. So these are both tuition-free options to you. We're going to tonight focus on the micro school, especially since this is for the Colorado Springs area. And we have 4 guides who have said they want to do this, and 3 of them have started in training. So this is starting to, we're starting to grow. In Arizona, we have grown a lot, and a lot of people know somebody that has some tie to Prenda. Either, I was just looking at, one of the people I work with was saying they were meeting with for a business thing. I don't know if it was over Zoom or in person. And it was some older guys, and he was talking about where he works, and they're like, Prenda, my grandkid's in that. And it was just really unexpected for him that these like older guys would even know what Prenda was. So we realized that in Colorado, we don't have the reputation that we have in Arizona. You may not know anything about us. And so would love to invite you into becoming a Prenda pioneer in Colorado. If you're looking for, and when I talk about this, I'm not talking about the actual learning model. Our learning model is fantastic. It's ever evolving and developing, because that's how we are at Prenda. We'll never be satisfied with like what it looks like. Our process in Colorado is still what I would consider a beautiful mess. Every now and then it's a hot mess, but most of the time it's just a beautiful mess. So if you're looking for something on the like structural side, in the becoming a guide and enrolling students and all that, and you need it to be really well-oiled machine, this is not the right time to join us. If you are a like visionary that would love to help shape what this looks like in Colorado, we want you to join us. Like, you're the person that will help us like understand the Colorado landscape of what needs to be different, what can stay the same, how Prenda will be moving forward. And we're looking for those just foundational guides, the guides that will lay the foundation for the future of Prenda in Colorado, who will be the people that are the experts moving forward. And so if any of that has resonated with you, don't leave this, because we'll tell you all about it. Sorry, I got a little rambly on that. Okay, so let's jump into the model Tate and talk Conquer, Collaborate, and Create. So there are slides for all these. Just FYI, Conquer is very, very intentionally climbing a mountain. It's where we do our academics, reading, writing, grammar, and math for our 3rd through 8th graders, and math and literacy for our K2s. And it's that time that they just have to buckle down and do that. The really beautiful thing is we give them learner autonomy. So that empowering learners, the way we empower learners is we give them power. Duh, I just realized that's in the word. We give them choice, which gives them power in their own, Tate's laughing at me, and so Shauna, gives them a chance to like own it themselves. And if you've never given a child the opportunity to own something, You may not have seen the magic that happens with that, and it is messy. It's that whole, like, if you're the parent that's like, I just much rather do it myself because I can do it faster. Like, giving kids an opportunity to get in and do stuff just feels powerful to them. And when they can do it in school, where they essentially in a traditional model have no choice ever, almost, it's a really powerful thing. So go ahead and go to our Conquer slide, Tate. So this is an example of a K2 classroom. One of the questions we get, and Tate may ask me later, so I'll just share it. We provide a computer for all of our kids, and we use digital tools instead of textbooks to deliver instruction. And it's the reason that that's really powerful is every kid at that table is working at a totally different place. So some of those kids are kindergartners. The one with the pink headphones is named Sway. She's this really, really high energy kindergartner. And then some of these guys, 4 or 5 of these guys are second graders. And so this is a picture from last year. So every single one of them can be working exactly where their learning is. We call it their learning frontier. You can see that. And not having to wait. As a former teacher, pacing is like almost an impossibility. To find a pace to move your students through curriculum and serve a majority of people is almost impossible. You'll be too fast for a lot of kids and too slow for other kids. And so we've remedied that by saying every kid works exactly where they are. And it's a really powerful thing. So for the littles, they're in this Conquer time, they're on computers for about 40 minutes. And that's the extent of their time on computers for the day. For our older kids, that's 90 to 120 minutes. And again, back to the choice concept, they're given this framework of time and they get to choose. So the first thing they do when they come in is they have community circle and they do some connective activity, and then they share their goals, their individual daily goals for each of those 4 subjects: reading, writing, grammar, and math. And then they input those into our software. And I can show you that in a little bit. But and those goals are based on discussions they've had with their guide and their parent, where they're saying, this is where I want to be in this period of time. And they work that bigger goal backwards and set a small goal. So even just these life skills of setting goals, and then they get to choose if they do math first or reading first or writing first. Again, that's where the power is. And if you look at school, it's like you have X number of minutes for math and that exact same number of minutes for English. Well, some kids need this much time for math and this much time for English because they're really good at this and really struggle in this, or it might be the other way around. They get that flexibility there. I feel like I've sort of beaten the dead horse on this one. Conquer is a really beautiful time. The last thing I'll say, Shauna loves this anecdote. Little 6-year-old comes up to her guide and is crying because math is really hard sometimes, especially if you don't already know it. And she's just like, I can't do this. And her guide says to her, do you want to keep climbing your mountain or do you just want to quit? And she ponders that and decides to go back, and she actually conquers that piece. But the cool part of the story is a month later, her mom was at home and struggling with something. And her 6-year-old said to her mom, do you want to keep climbing your mountain or do you just want to quit? And I just thought, that's fantastic. That's Prenda permeating. When you talk to Prenda parents, they find that they parent differently because of the principles that they and their children are learning in Prenda. It's not just like a place to send your kid to school. It's a whole new way of thinking and Shauna can talk about that with her family, just sort of how that's happened for her. So that's Conquer time. That's the beginning part of the day. The next part of our day, and I didn't mention, most of our micro schools in Arizona happen in homes. We also have micro schools in churches, community centers, mainly that, churches, community centers, and community centers being broad. Like there's a number of different ways that happens. So know that there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of option for that. And we're really excited to see what happens with spaces in Colorado, whether they happen in homes or people find other creative spaces to use. The community center classes are really, really cool as well. So the second part of the day is called Collaborate. So it's sort of like, so Conquer is that individual. The cool thing about it is they're all working individually, but they're doing it as a collective. And so I can go to my classmate and ask a question. It's very interactive. One of my favorite things that Kelly did with his micro school is anytime anyone hit 25, 50, or 75% in Khan Academy, they would stop the entire class and have a 3-minute dance party to a song of that child's choice. Like just really fun stuff like that. So Collaborate is the time when they get social and do some difficult things sometimes. So the principles of Collaborate are social interaction, communication, and relationship building. So these are the things that happen in Collaborate. And when I show you our software, I'll talk through some of the experiences they have in that time. It's really fun to watch. I never knew that show and tell like had an actual purpose. when you get like kindergarten, first and second graders, I just thought show and tell was like, I don't know what I thought it was, a time filler. I didn't see, but I went to visit a class in Flagstaff and I watched a kindergartner like own the room. And the guide just kind of reminding like, what are we doing with our ears? Where are our bodies facing? Just all these things that kids don't know innately. My favorite was being in a class where this kindergartner was starting to present something, and classmates, as little kindergartners will do, or like kept raising their hands. And I heard, and I look at him and he goes, I'll take questions at the end. And he like continues. And I was like, this kid has definitely been taught how to like present as a kindergartner. So Collaborate again is that social piece that as we as adults recognize how important knowing how to engage with other people is in every part of our lives. So love Collaborate. And then the last part of our day is called Create. It's project-based learning. This is for the older kids. This happens a little bit differently for the K2. So if you are really interested in K2, put a question in the chat and I'll kind of dig into K2 a little bit more. But in our older kids, that discover, invent, perform, become, and again, I'll show you our software there. It's called Create. There's a product at the end of everyone. This is Macy with her diorama. Sometimes it's a digital product like a PowerPoint or a movie. Sometimes it's like a ship, a boat, a bridge, a water wheel. Like there's all these things that they can make, and I'll show you where they get those ideas. So Tate, I'm gonna take us to Prenda World, which I am gonna log into my daughter's account and then share my screen. So this is our portal. So this is my 6th grade daughter's Prenda World account. So when they come in at the beginning of the day, they first go to Conquer, it doesn't have to be in the order of Conquer, Collaborate, and Create. Most of them are. They can be moved around. However, when they set their goals, they come into Conquer and they set their math goal, they set their language goal, they set their writing goal and their reading goal. Which is interesting. She's been reading Hunger Games, and now she's reading an article in Newsela, so that's changed a little bit. And then if they finish their work in this specified time, they get to choose an extra goal that lets them do things here. Let me scroll up a little bit. Art, coding, foreign language, geography. I mean, you can see that they can do something that they're passionate about in that time. And so that's the Conquer software. And then Collaborate, you can see our topics. And when they go into this, so for example, so these are student-led. This is a really beautiful part of Collaborate that I didn't mention. These are student-led. This isn't the guide leading this, although the guide will model what leading it looks like at the beginning so that they know how to do that. But a guide goes into, a student is assigned, okay, you're in charge of Collaborate today. We have a calendar that does that for them. And so the guide will check in with them. And if the student wants to know about debate, they have documents to help them understand the different ways that you can debate. And then they get to choose the topic, the way the debate is done, and anything else that goes along with that. And then they rate themselves. They give themselves a score for it. They rate the activity, and that's Collaborate. And again, the experiences, they debate, they do Socratic discussion, exploration is a way we do history, they do collaborative math puzzles, they do science projects, they do writing. The writing games is one person will write something, and then anyway, it's a time for them just to be together. So we're extending some of those other academics like history and science and to collaborate and create. But really it's about how do we interact with other human beings, because we consider that really important. And then in create, they get to come to our library, which I'm hoping is going to open. Sometimes the star makes me nervous. Oh, this is new. So my daughter's chosen a mini farm as her project. Oh, she's making, this is a create your own, it looks like. So it gave her the chance. She didn't find a project she wanted, so she's doing a mini farm. So she says she's going to learn how to take care of animals, and this will teach responsibility. So she's chosen personal growth. She gets to walk through what those look like and create her own project. If she weren't creating her own project, she would be in this library choosing from a vast number of projects which I'm not going to mess with her stuff because if I take anything out. So these are some that she's already done. As you go into those, you get to see. So if you've like seen the research about project-based learning, that's our day. It's like spend an hour to 2 hours doing the core academic stuff, spend another hour learning how to relate to other people, and then spend another hour to 2 hours creating stuff. Like what an incredible way to do school. So that is what I wanted to share about the model. Shauna, I would love to give you some notice on what I'm going to ask you about, but you might not get it. Can you talk about, I've heard you talk about this once before. Can you talk about like how Prenda has become, how Prenda has changed your family? I guess that would be the way to ask it.
Yeah. So like Rochelle told you a little bit about how we met and started doing Prenda. So I've been guiding this is my second year. And my first semester, I had my own daughter in Prenda, and now I have my daughter and my son. And my other two kiddos, an older and a younger, both go to different micro schools. So we have the whole family in now. And we definitely, because we take our core values very seriously, we've definitely not only just used them and adhered to that belief in our micro school, but even at home, we're able to take those same core values and apply them in our family. So there's times where like my kids will get frustrated and they'll want to give up on something, something that they're learning or something that they're doing at home, whether it's, I know this sounds silly, but probably like a video game or a task that they've been given to do, because they do have jobs that they do around our house. And I don't always like jump in and help them right away anymore. It's not mom to save the day. It's more like, yeah, you look like you're having a rough time. You should probably figure that out. And so we've taken opportunities to kind of just let them grow and figure things out. And yeah, life gets messy, but that's part of learning. We have my favorite one is Start with Heart, because when in a micro school and in a family, there's just definitely a lot of love there, and we really do love our students and I love my kids. And so starting with heart and coming from a place of love where we know that learning's hard and accomplishing those tasks are really hard as well. So being able to start with heart and come from a place of love to teach our kids, and well, not really teach, but to guide them through those struggles. Anyways, but my own daughter, I mean, she came into Prenda not being very good at math. And we definitely had a lot of struggle there for a time, but she's definitely, and my son as well, like they definitely have learned to have some grit and endurance and really power through some of those struggles. And there's moments where we're really vulnerable and and they're just willing to rise to the task, and they've powered through them and they've overcome them. And I think each time they are able to power through those struggles and see the success on the other side, that just gives them more courage to just tackle another task. And so we just, I don't know, like every piece that I've learned in Prenda along the way, I'm like, oh, well, that works as a mom too. And we could use that in our family too. And so it's changed the way our family runs. Like I'd have to say that there's probably less arguing and more like start with heart. We always have those reminders of like trusting one another and knowing that we're all in this together. So I don't know if that's what you wanted me to say, but that's what I'm going to say.
Awesome. I didn't have any, Shauna's
No
awesome, and her, yeah, exactly. So Tate, let's go ahead and look at the core values that Shauna mentioned, most of them. And like she said, these are the words we live by, and not our students, our guides, we that work at Prenda. This is how we operate, and start with heart is a big one. It's just about love. Dare greatly. If you're a Teddy Roosevelt or Brene Brown fan, you understand the idea of being in the arena. Like, we want kids to understand what it's like to be in the arena. And one of my favorite quotes is, the fastest way to succeed is to double your rate of failure. And as our kids in micro school learn, one of my favorite stories about this, so there's this, we do growth mindset with our K2s. There's a whole growth mindset curriculum. And one of the women that works on our team has a 5-year-old, well, he's not now. He was a kindergartner last year. He's now a first grader. But he was the kind of kid that when he made a mistake, he was devastated by it and assumed that he no longer had a place in his family. He'd be like, you want to send me away now because, and she said this one day, he'd been in micro school for about a semester, and she'd just come home from Costco with a huge bin of strawberries, and he was getting one out, and the entire bin of strawberries ended up on the floor. And she said for him, normally it would be like a really, really dramatic meltdown. She said he watched his face contort, and then his brain caught it, and he took a deep breath and he said to himself, mistakes are part of learning. And that's a powerful lesson to a kid who is a perfectionist or holds himself to a standard that is unattainable, because none of us are going to be perfect. And so to be able to understand that we grow from our mistakes is a really powerful piece of this. So Shauna talked about figure it out, talked a little bit about foundation of trust. It's really important that when children are in an educational environment, they can trust the adult that is with them. And we do a lot of things in our classrooms to build that, and to teach guides how to operate in a way where they're building that trust and allowing a student to show up the way they are, and not controlling them. And then learning over comfort, that whole learning frontier thing. It's really, we have a saying that we have, which is never be afraid to be a beginner. And we do a lot of that at Prenda. We're beginners in Colorado right now. So there's, we're doing a little bit of learning over comfort as we bring Prenda to Colorado. And so I can relate to that. So Tate, are we talking about details for the micro school next? Awesome. So let's talk about what this looks like for a guide. So probably the biggest thing right now, especially in Colorado Springs where we can have micro schools, it's really awesome when parents are interested in Prenda. That's fantastic. I will say that we could have 1 million parents, and if we have no guides, we have no Prenda micro schools. And so if you're a parent who's looking at this and you really want to find a micro school for your kids, but you can't or aren't interested in guiding, the first thing I'll say to you is pull out your phone and look at your contacts and find somebody that might be a great guide. Think about your neighborhood, think about your community. Who would I want to have my kids spend this time with, and who would I trust? That's probably the best way to do this. So you can read all these advantages. One of the great things about having found a partnership that makes this it's tuition free to parents, and we have funding to pay the guides. And so a guide can earn, like it says, with a class of 10 kids. So that's based on essentially, and it may be a little bit higher than this, but somewhere around, it's at least $3,000 per student per year. And that's in a 20 to 24 hour a week over a school year of 36 weeks. So it's a really solid part-time job. And we have guides that are, Shauna's a former educator that came into Prenda, and we have a lot of teachers that have joined us, and we have a lot of people who weren't teachers that have joined us, who we recognize that they didn't have the opportunity to go to college, like that didn't present itself for them, and their life experience is one that makes them really brilliant with kids and in providing a social or an emotionally uplifting environment for kids. We want those people to be guides too. And so we will give you everything you need to be a guide. We do a really rigorous vetting process, which includes interviews and filling out forms that give us a really good sense of kind of your soul. We also do a background check, fingerprint clearance card. Our guides have liability insurance. So on the safety side, we've taken things really seriously. And then we give a guide everything they need on the training to become a guide. And then we support them and mentor them throughout the year and years to do that. So we are looking for micro school guides in Colorado Springs and would love to have you be that, if anything we've said tonight has spoken to you. And again, if you're a parent, Shauna is setting up, I don't know if it's already done, is setting up a Facebook group to help connect parents who are looking for a guide and guides who may have spots. So we don't really engage in that, but we will create a platform for you to engage in that. Again, as a parent, if you can find somebody you know to do it, it just feels good. You know, it feels really good, and the trust is it's easier to send your kid there. Again, we vet really well, and I feel really good about all the guides we have, and I know that I want to know my kids' guides. I didn't know the two guides that my children have, I didn't know those guides before they became guides, but I have gotten to know them well, and I'm really comfortable with my kids being there. So it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody you know, but it's really helpful. Tate, is there anything other slides, or are we to questions?
We're mostly to questions. I would just say, if you're interested in enrolling your kids, becoming a guide, Prenda Family, any of them, go to that URL we just showed, prendaschool.com/Colorado, and you can get started on any of those going to that site. Awesome.
Are there any questions, Tate?
Let me check. I looked away for just a second, so let me check. And maybe, I know there's a slight delay, so if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in now. I was wondering, maybe in the meantime, Shauna, if I can also put you on the spot. If you can just share part of your experience being a guide and maybe why you would recommend being a guide to others. I know you shared about your family and how it's helped, but being a guide and your experience there, would you mind sharing a little bit?
Sure. So I'm a guide for grades 3rd through 8th, and had 9 students last year. Several of them graduated into their freshman years of high school, and so I just didn't replace those students this year. So I have 6 remaining, and I have to say it's the most challenging job that I've had. I mean, I have been a public school teacher, and that also came with its challenges, but this has almost been a way of just relearning a better way to educate and to help kids. It is not easy, but it is very much worth it. And I love that anytime I met with a challenge or a struggle that I have in my micro school, there's always like tools and resources that I can go to within our own online software, which is what Rochelle was showing you, that there's a place in there for guide resources that you can look up any questions that you have, or if you need help with any, you have a guide mentor. Sometimes just talking it out with another guide is helpful. So being able to know the other guides in your neighborhood, your neighborhood here in Arizona, our neighborhoods, but even within the state, and being able to just chat over a Zoom call or even just over the phone. It's just there, I don't feel alone, even though my own micro schools in my home and I don't see guides on a regular basis, I still feel very supported. So that's been awesome. And being able to use some of these new tools and techniques that we learn in guide training and also in some of the support courses, I guess you could call them, that Cassie puts together on the guide team that are just, I mean, there's definitely research to back up that they work, but then using them and seeing them work is like a whole new sense of gratification. So it's awesome. So that's pretty much what I would wrap my guide experience around, is it's always learning. There's never a dull moment.
Totally. One of the things that we didn't see coming was, and it as a really cool byproduct, was the growth that happens in our guides. Like when after that first year of like bigger group of guides went through, that was sort of an across the board. Guides were just so grateful for all the ways they had grown as human beings, and that's really fun to watch. Tate, what else do we have?
That's it. Looks like we covered it thoroughly enough to answer all the questions. If you do have any other questions that you think of down the road, please feel free to message us or contact us through our website. We'd be happy to get in touch with you. If you're watching this later, you can comment on the video and we'll get you an answer as well. So thank you for joining us. Let us know your questions. Again, if you're interested, visit us at prendaschool.com/Colorado and we can help you get started in whichever option you want to choose.
Thanks, Tate. Thanks, Shauna. Have a great night.